I genuinely asked myself, Alex, are you okay?
That you cannot be spiritually mature while remaining emotionally immature.
Me fixate on the past or fixate on the future, but actually the only moment that I can connect with Holy Spirit is like right here,
Brilliant.
right now.
The Lord said, Ben, I'm trying to heal her, but you keep breaking your word in the small things, and every time you do that, you're undoing the healing that I'm doing.
Wow, that's good.
Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. This is The Healthy Christian. I'm Sabrina Peters, psychologist and pastor, passionate about emotional health and spiritual maturity, because the best you is a whole you. Let's check out today's episode. Welcome back to today's episode. We are on the couch with a bunch of pastors. Say hi to Jessie, Alex, and Ben. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourself and then one interesting fact?
All right. My interesting fact would be that I am Italian, Irish, South African, and then I was like raised here, but like that's my heritage. So I feel like I'm a pretty fiery combination, and maybe explain some of my like intensity. And yeah, I'm Jessie. I'm a pastor at Kingdom Culture Church, songwriter, worship leader, married to my husband, Dan.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jessie. Alex.
So good. Well, because you started off with the ethnicity thing, I'm just going to keep it going. My interesting fact is my bloodline. No, so my dad's Chinese Malaysian and my mum's a Kiwi. So I like to intro myself that I'm the human version of a sweet chili sour cream dip. Okay? So a little bit of Chinese, a little bit of white. That's me. That's who I am, all right? But born in New Zealand, raised here, lived around the world. And my wife is Carly. We've got 3 beautiful children. And we pastor HM Church on the sunny coast. So
Wonderful.
That's me.
Great church. Love your shirt as well.
Yes,
more
this is
people
us.
becoming more like Jesus.
That's what
Stella.
we're about.
Ben.
Hi, everybody. My name's Ben, and it's so great to be welcomed as a guest on this podcast today. And this is such
Thank
a
you for
beautiful
being
honor.
here.
Yeah, thank you for bringing me out. I'm married to Sabrina. Interesting fact. We've been in ministry 19 years. Probably such a huge part of that. I think 10 years of that, we were self-funding and things. And so I've kind of always been in business as well. And business and ministry, that's always been a fun tension and an interesting juggle. At the moment, I'm the lead pastor of Kingdom City here in Brisbane. We love it. 2 gorgeous children and obviously a fantastic wife.
Thanks, babe. You say the same thing every time. And I'm
He's
like,
a man of consistency. And I honor him
like,
for
is
that.
this rehearsed? Pre this, I was like, don't say this, don't say that. But thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Actually, interesting fact about myself, not that you asked, but
Yes, please tell us more.
I used to be a competitive gymnast, and I can still handstand and backflip.
Flip.
Yeah, and I
Can't say this stuff on a podcast without proof.
Hey, she will show you.
to do
Yeah,
flip
she will show you
right
after the podcast.
All right.
We'll do it after and we'll cut it in.
Yes, backflip.
100%.
You'll go on the line and then we'll cut it.
It
Cut away.
comes out at every staff camp.
Yeah.
Anytime we're involved in youth ministry, you'll see someone will
The
talk.
mosh
You know,
pit or
yeah.
No, it's usually I'm pressured. It's mostly by Ben. He'll be like, flip, flip, flip. And then everybody else is like, come on, brains. And I'm like, I'm nearly 40. Like, leave me alone. I'm not fit. But yeah, I could probably do a good backflip, a good handstand. So
if you stay to the end of this episode, you will see a backflip. And if she does it, you must click subscribe. I'll just throw that one in there now for you for free.
yeah. So guys, let's jump in. A couple of questions, keeping it really kind of authentic and maybe things that people don't know about us or about ministry. My first question is, if you weren't a pastor, what else do you think you'd be doing? What other job would you be doing if you weren't a minister?
I'd want your job. I'd want to be a psychologist.
Wow.
I've said that. I've literally said for the last 10 years, if degrees grew on trees, I would get a psych degree. Like I just find it fascinating. And I feel like I read everything pop psychology, but I'm like, how cool to be a real psychologist? So That's actually what I'd want to do.
There you go. Interesting. Awesome. I think that speaks to your curiosity of mind and learning. Yeah. Like just knowing you a little bit, your curiosity to gain knowledge. A lot of that has to do with psychology. You're trying to understand human behavior, and then the other element is that empathy. You're trying to alleviate suffering. So your heart, your empath heart and your gift of mercy probably draws you into that. True. But Alex, what would you be doing if you weren't a pastor?
See, I don't have like a beautiful answer like that. I could say without having a title, this is going to like just sound so human and not like godly, but I'd be doing something that makes more money. And you're all laughing because it's true.
We're all like, so true.
Where are these preacher and sneakers guys? I mean, that's not our experience.
I'm here in a pair of secondhand Vans over here and my wife's socks, for goodness sake. I don't know like exactly, I guess, what I'd be doing, but I'm just passionate about people.
Yeah.
I was living as a missionary in Thailand for a year of my life.
Wow.
Fresh out of school, 10 days after year 12, went to Thailand, ended up being there for 13 months. And I came back and I remember saying to my parents, I know what I want to do in life. And they're like, yes, tell us. And they're thinking missionary, pastor, preacher. And I was like, I want to run a cafe. And we sort of boiled it down more. And it was nothing to do, and I ran a cafe in Thailand, but it was nothing to do with coffee and food, but it was about creating a space for people to connect. Right. And that's what just like lights me up. So whatever that looks like when people get together is that excites me. So that's me.
That's wonderful. Benny.
I do love business, and I've always had that tension of both, although ministry has been, when it comes to work and vocation and serving God, that heart for God and his house has always been stronger. But if I couldn't do ministry, I would probably do business or a stay-at-home dad. And we'd obviously need to have a few more children, but I just really like the look of that. You know what I mean? You're staying at home, your wife's out there, she's working as a psychologist, bringing in the big bucks, and you're attempting to mop the floor, doing a lousy job.
Maybe mowing the lawn.
And maybe mowing the lawn.
100% no, he would not be mowing the lawn.
I mow the lawn. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Respect. My wife does mow the lawn, but
and whippersnip,
to be fair,
and tend the garden.
She wants to do it. Okay, she wants to do it, and she likes it. All right. There's also a bit more context. Number one, like I would do it, but like my timeline of she's like, "Can you mow the lawn sometime in the next 2 weeks?" I'm like, "Sure." 5 minutes later, she's like, "Can you do it on Saturday?" I'm like, "Sure." Another 5 minutes goes by. She's like, "Can you do it this afternoon?" I'm like, "Sure." And then she's out there pulling it out of the gut. She's like, "I don't know why you're not doing it right now." So our pace is a bit different. But also, I do all the cooking.
He does.
And the ironing.
I
do.
He does.
The ironing is a new thing. I mean, that's just.
Who irons?
I felt like I wasn't doing enough around the house.
I don't iron anymore.
I didn't iron this. It's true that Ben does all of the cooking in our household, and he's just taken on board the ironing, which I appreciate.
Don't know if this is going to fare very well on social media. I don't know if it's going to be respected.
People are
Who is this man?
Right
the audience completely changes. Men stop watching.
We're becoming healthier Christians every second. This is awesome.
Yeah.
How about you?
I feel like I'm drawn so much to advocacy that part of me in my mind is like, if I wasn't a minister of the gospel, I would be a police officer, just to protect people. And I think I do that naturally in different roles and different jobs. I was a social worker for many years as well. And so part of me, the desire to advocate and stand up for vulnerable people and stand for justice is there. And so I say to Ben every so often, I'm like, I think I could have been a good police officer. So, yeah.
I can see that.
Really?
Yeah, Taser, gun, vest. You actually be very scary.
Yeah.
I'm 5 foot tall, so.
But a lot of fire.
Yeah.
She is half German and half Maori. And so it's a very intense heritage there.
Yeah.
And so, born to fight, basically.
Yeah. Born to defend.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Do you guys have any questions, burning questions?
All right, I've got one.
Look out.
What is a book that you read that changed your life? Like, it doesn't have to be like, but just some sort of change that's like since I read that, it's shifted the way I think or behave in a certain area or in the whole of life.
Alex.
I feel like you guys are looking at me. I'm doing my best as a preacher, pastor, minister of the gospel to work my way through the Bible.
That has to be
I'm up to Genesis 1.
Okay.
No, obviously, let's put the Bible as number one. We all get that.
yeah.
I read a book and I was probably 18 or 19. And it was Crazy Love by Francis Chan.
Yeah.
And the sort of premise that he landed on, where he landed the plane with the book, is you can be in crazy love with God and Him with you, and it's just this sort of forever communing with the Lord. And it's not limited to a church service or an event or a moment, but it's a continuous conversation you hold with the Lord. And I remember that just changed my paradigm, because being a church kid, my parents are pastors, raised in church. For some reason, I'd formed a theology that I could only meet with the Lord at seminars and conferences and church events. But it was like like the ceiling that I'd put over myself meeting with Jesus was taken off. And I was like, wow, it just changed my walk with the Lord. So they'll never forget that book.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. A book that impacted me probably about 5 years ago. It's a very out there book, and a full disclaimer, but it's called The Final Quest by a guy called Rick Joyner. And I don't know what it was about it. The whole thing is basically like a modern version of the Pilgrim's Progress, but he kind of describes it as this prophetic vision that he had. And look, I don't really know how he got to it, but it's this incredible story. But what hit me so hard was people that had served God their whole life, and he kind of paints this picture of them standing before God and kind of giving an account of their life, you know. And I realized in that moment, I probably already knew it, but just in vivid picture, that you could actually serve God with your whole life.
Wow, that's good.
And you could do the right thing and be a pastor and do this, and it not matter in eternity because you didn't love people. Or because you did it from like a place of pride or ego, or really it was about building your own empire or kingdom. And it just hit me so, and it painted this picture of eternity that I've never lost. And I think it's about chapter 4 or 5 that he talks about that. It's a very out there book. I mean, you know, take it all with a grain of salt, but that just hit me so hard.
Yes.
And I've probably never been the same since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah, I second that, because when Ben read it, it was so impactful for him. He's like, babe, you need to read this book. And one thing that stood out to me was, like Benny said, you can serve God with your whole life, with all of your time, but if your heart is not right and your motive is not pure, it just does not count for anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, as ministers, like that speaks to us, because we can be in ministry and we can look like we're doing the right things and we are serving God and we're loving people, but our heart can be off. It could be about ourselves. It could be about building an empire or something significant. And none of that is bad in itself, but in essence, it's like kingdom is we lay down our lives for the glory of God. And so it's bringing us back to a place of purity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it just felt like before that time that my life was just a few degrees off, you know. It was like, where can I go to be the most fruitful, not where can I go to be the most obedient, you know. And
That's big.
because you could be, you know, we're talking about Thailand, you could be in a back city in Thailand with relatively a small church or a small ministry, and yet the Lord could view that with such esteem because of why you're doing it. You did it out of obedience. You did it out of love for the people.
Yeah.
And you could be in a major city running a major church with lots of influence, with lots of resources, and the Lord isn't stoked with it because you're doing it from this really for yourself, or you've lost sight of the people, you've lost sight of love. And so it just hit me, man.
big.
You asked that question. It just hit me. It just hit me, Jessie.
Jessie, what's a book that's shaped you and changed you?
I think I haven't read it in a while, but I feel like it always comes up in conversation, so it must have really impacted me. The Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
So
Got it on
I
the
think,
shelf.
which I think is like, I think it's really a book on like self-awareness / like, the ways that the enemy will lie to us. And I think it's just it does such a great job in packaging it in a way that you realize the subtleties with which, kind of like what you're just saying, like a few degrees off, or like the contradictions and the ways that we can like tell ourselves something and believe something that isn't actually true, but we can be holding these things and it doesn't really make sense. And it's like actually recognizing, okay, like the enemy he's got me here a bit like bound in, whether it's like pride, but it's packaged in a way that sounds it sounds good, or judgmental. I remember like there's a chapter on the church where he talks about like, he's talking about we can come in and see everybody else's dysfunction and see like the areas where it feels a bit try hard or a bit lame. And he was writing from an Anglican context. There's like these rickety pews and pitchy singing and the oily man from the grocer that comes up and gives you a hymn book, and you just think, oh, this is so opaque and boring, but you don't recognize like just like you're not recognizing your own dysfunction that you're bringing into the church. You're quick to see everybody else's. I feel like it's like self-awareness and awareness of how like the enemy could try to get you off track and a way to keep you like solid with the Lord and loving his church and growing in maturity into everything that God has and the way that he refines us as well. I think like, it just does a great job at recognizing like how the Lord matures us. So probably that book.
That's
wonderful.
Awesome. So
A book that I found really impacting. It's called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality by Peter Scazzaro. The premise of that is that you cannot be spiritually mature while remaining emotionally immature.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah, I think that resonates so much with me. And to be honest, it probably shone a bit of a spotlight in the areas of brokenness and emotional immaturity in my life. You know, the little shadows, the things that we kind of hide and we don't bring to the Lord. And that shaped me significantly in going, I don't just want to be spiritually strong and have great faith. I want to be emotionally whole.
Yeah.
I want to be emotionally mature. I want to be a good wife and a good mum. And that's the direction I want my life to face, is the intersection of both of those things, really spirit and soul, into surrender and submission to the Lord. So good.
That was on my short list.
Was it?
I was like, I love that one too.
Yeah, that was number 2 for me as well.
Oh, great.
It's great. It's such a great read, but I think it opens your eyes as well, how you can have this depth where you've gone a bit deeper in God, you've been around church for a while, or you know the word now well, but if you're missing, simple things like love and service, or if things are causing a reaction in you, what's going on with that? That's a problem.
Yeah.
And I feel like a brilliant book. And one of the guys on our team, Pastor David Storer, shout out, Pastor David Storer.
He's not watching.
He's not watching, but if he was. But he's like the father of wholeness, and he does this course in our greenhouse, which is our leadership college. He does a course on wholeness, and it's just so life transforming. So
that's awesome.
I would say that, coupled with that book, that course, and conversations with Pastor David really shape both of us. Yeah.
So good. Just on the topic of emotional maturity, spiritual maturity you're talking about earlier, I'd love to know what are some practices, because sometimes when we hear pastors speak, especially either sermons or podcasts, we can sometimes talk in the clouds a lot. And I don't know, I'm just a real practical guy, and I love to like get to the dirt. And maybe for those listening, what's a real, talking like a daily habit or a practice that each of you have implemented to help grow your spiritual maturity, or even just your emotional maturity? What's that look like?
For me, that would be journaling. And that's just because that's the way that I connect and relate to God. And so often I would journal, dear God, or like I would kind of welcome his presence. Years ago, I was a daddy God person in my head.
I was
sorry.
too.
It's okay.
I
We've
said
all
that.
done things that we wish we didn't. No.
Because the way I prefaced that was like, dear God. It used to be dear daddy God, but now it's just like, hey Lord. So journaling for me has become a crux of my devotional life.
That's awesome.
Behind us, there's a little white couch, and that is my Jesus corner. It has got a big bookshelf because I am an avid reader and I love love to learn and I love to have my mind changed through reading, I will sit there pretty regularly and I'll just have my journal, my Bible, a pen, and that shapes me. That really is a tool of spiritual formation for me. Benny, I know you do different things. You're not really a sitter. You're a walker.
Yeah.
Gets on a phone call, ends up 5K down the road.
I never know where Ben is. He's spending time with God and I'll look outside and he's like in the garden or something. So what do you do?
In terms of cultivating wholeness?
And just like spiritual maturity, those things.
Yeah, so much of it I think is awareness. And I think there is this such a huge temptation to be hearing things through the lens of, they need to change this. Hearing a sermon through, that the guy next to me really needs to work on this. Hearing a podcast or reading a book or reading something in the scripture, think, oh man, my wife needs to get this, right? Yeah, this is for everyone else. And but just taking your eyes off yourself. But I feel like if you could help people do something, I would say encourage them to cultivate a posture of openness where you're just open to the Lord speaking to you.
Great.
And you put down your defenses. And you realize that the only reason he wants to change you is because he loves you. And he's trying to free you and heal you and make you whole.
That's awesome.
And I remember this one time, I have these moments, these experiences in my walk with God. It's not like every day, but from time to time where I feel so corrected by God. And he'll just put his finger on something. And it's usually not something
The pruning of the Lord.
It's not usually something that I have been feeling, condemned about, or oh man, I should be doing better at this, or I should be working harder at this. It's just usually out of the blue, something that I can't see. And I would say it's a bit different to that voice of condemnation that says you're not trying hard enough, you're not working hard enough. It's like a sharp thing, and to me, it just hits me, but it also brings about almost like an immediate change. And but after one of these times, I was actually like almost not shaken, but just like, wow, that was a lot,
Which one? Tell us.
No, we don't need to talk the details.
The details of
Do you
this
want the
encounter.
details?
Yeah.
Right. So she knows what I'm talking about, but well, we just had a big fight. And I dropped her off at university or something, and I'm driving home. I'm like, God, this is enough. She needs to change this. I had a list of 5 things that she needed to change. The Holy Spirit gently said to me, Ben, in the car, he said, Ben, I need to talk to you about something. And so I'm like, all right. And so I waited till I got home, got my journal, and said, what are you trying to say? And it was just bang, 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 all to me.
What did he say?
Yeah. She wants the 5 things.
What were the 5 things?
Yeah. It was just bang, bang, bang. And it was pretty.
One of them?
I don't know. Do you really want me to say? Yeah, really.
I can't remember what it is. I'm asking.
Right. So oftentimes our disagreements, our fights, arguments in marriage, it's really my flesh fighting your flesh, or my brokenness battling your brokenness. Right.
Yep.
And so really, like, my inability to cope with the criticism or the tone or whatever she was using or the things that she was doing I didn't like, really, that's my brokenness and insecurity, not coping with that, right?
Yeah.
And so I had my list of things she needed to change, and the Lord said, change. But one of the things was, and Sabrina actually, a part of why I think she's a psychologist is she kind of came from a bit of a hectic upbringing in some ways. There's some
in all the ways.
In all of the ways, there's a fair bit of brokenness that she came from, and we kind of figured that out in our marriage as well. But the Lord said, Ben, I'm trying to heal her, but you keep breaking your word in the small things, and every time you do that, you're undoing the healing that I'm doing.
Wow, that's massive.
And so, yeah. And so it was just brutal. And I sat out here, just a few years ago, sat out here, and I'm like, I could barely get up. And that was one of probably 13 things that were just really corrective. But I remember saying, Lord, how do I cope with this? Yeah. Like, this is so, it's good, I need to hear it, but how do I cope with your corrections? And just so quickly, I felt the Holy Spirit whisper to me, Ben, presume it's in love, because it always is.
Yeah.
That's
and
good.
that just
That's
helped. So when we are going to God, we can come with openness, because if he wants to change something, he just loves us. You know what I mean? He wants us to be more whole, more fruitful, more useful, more like Jesus. So don't take it so personally when the Holy Spirit puts his finger on something, or when a pastor or a leader or a friend or a spouse says, hey, I think you need to work on this. Just have this openness. And I think when we're open, we're just in a position, a disposition for God to heal and to do things. Yeah.
Well, it's like the scriptures, right? He corrects those that he loves. Yeah. He disciplines those that he loves. I'm pretty sure that's John 3:16. Yeah.
I think so.
Over to you, JR. What's
Get back to reading that book. Yeah.
So practical day-to-day things that help with our like emotionally healthy spirituality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like really practically, but like exercising for me, I think like moving my body, whether it's like going to gym or going for a walk, but sometimes like when I'm getting less healthy, that usually goes out the window.
Big time.
Or like spending time with my dog and like getting the chickens from the coop, like, and just like spending some time just like being like, I guess, mindfulness, like of like taking stock of the weather and like thanking God for like, and thankfulness probably.
Yeah,
so yeah,
gratitude.
Like, yeah. So very practical things, but these, I think I have at times probably connected to my journey with fertility, have battled anxiety, and that's been something that like will come and go. And so I think, I think that's been practical things that is like, okay. And I take note of it. I remember listening to a podcast a few years ago that said like anxiety is like the canary in the coal mine, that we can just try and like band-aid it, but it's okay, like what's the deeper thing?
It's underneath.
Why am I feeling anxious? Like that's a symptom, but there's like, so actually slowing down enough, because I think I probably keep my life quite full that's why I guess exercising, connecting to like my physical body. And I know that can probably sound a bit, I don't know, woo-woo, but just actually taking a moment to be like, okay, I'm here in this moment, not 3 steps ahead, racing ahead of God, because God is here in this moment. I remember reading from someone like we can be fixated on the past or fixated on the future, but actually the only moment that I can connect with Holy Spirit is like right here,
Brilliant.
right now.
Awesome.
I can meet him
So
here. I
good.
can't meet him, and so sometimes we spend so much time there. And so I think for me it's a practice, and for my issue it's not looking back, it's always like a fixation on the forward and feeling like nothing's ever enough, or there's always, and I think there's a healthy degree of like looking to the future, obviously. But this is more like an unhealthy fixation on the future where I have to go, okay, Lord, I want to meet you here right now in this moment and be thankful for what you have done and all that you are. So
That's
Brilliant.
awesome. So good.
Can I piggyback on that? You said looking forward or looking back. So in kind of psychology, we speak to like a window of time, and people that tend to have a big window of time into the future, they tend to be more anxious. So they ask questions like, what if this happens, blah, blah, blah. And so the big window forward often breeds this kind of catastrophizing, and it does raise anxiety. Anxiety is simply our brain's alarm system going off. Now, if, say, for example, there was a tiger in our front yard, that alarm system should go off, right? We should click into fight or flight. What tends to happen when people experience anxiety is there's no tiger in the yard, but you hit fight or flight. So you trip that alarm system. Have you guys ever had smoke alarms in your house and like there's no smoke, but they're like ding, 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 ding.
Yes, always at 3 a.m.
And then you like get out the broom and you're like hitting it to turn it off. That's often the experience of anxiety, is the alarm system is oversensitive and it's flicking. So big window into the future tends to increase anxiety. Big window into the past tends to increase depressive symptoms, low mood. There's often a regret. So there's a loss. So you can look back and you can go, my life was better when. My life was better when I was in this relationship. My life was better when I had this job. And so big window in the past, big window in the future increases both of those kind of emotional states. Big window in the present, it brings us to the here and now. And that's what we're all trying to do.
Yes,
that
more present.
I love what you said. This is the only time that we have in the here, in the now. And so much of, psychology and therapy brings people into that place of the here and now. But that is biblical.
Great.
Like that's a biblical principle that we would walk with God today. That we would have our daily bread, that we wouldn't rely on the past, that we wouldn't be anxious about the future. Exactly.
Today
be anxious
has
about nothing.
trouble for it.
Exactly.
I've got a great analogy
Go,
for
babe.
this. And because a lot of people don't realize this, but sometimes I consider myself the psychologist. You know what I mean? Like, and so
How is that for you?
it's
Are
a
you
heavy
okay?
burden. It's a heavy burden.
Yes.
It doesn't pay as well. And
Pays 0.
but I've thought about this. I think I've taught about it a little, maybe at church as well. But if you're driving, right, you've got 3 windows that you're looking at. One is your review, right? It should be small. It should be about that side. One is, I mean, in the 21st century, is Google Maps right there. I don't drive anywhere without Google Maps. Otherwise, I get stuck in traffic. And so I have Google Maps there. That's telling me, in about an hour, you should get there and take this turn, at some point in the future. But the focus is the windshield. And the focus is
Very
kind
good.
of present. You know what I mean? And so you do need a bit of openness to be like, okay, I could have done that better. Could have worked on that. But if it's too big, if the review mirror was as big as a windshield, you crash. And if you stay fixated on Google Maps on your phone, you're going to crash. So both
That's
of them
good.
will cause you
That's
to go off.
great.
Hence why I call myself a psychologist. Psychologist. Actually, funny story.
This man a raise.
Funny story. Our kids said to Sabrina once. They said, Dad makes the money, or some comment about money or whatever. And Sabrina goes, no, it's actually our money.
Yeah, it's ours.
No,
We're a family.
She said, we make the money. And I said, yeah. I said, just like Mummy's done her master's, and so we are psychologists.
I was like, no.
Exactly. It only works one way, though.
You're a good husband.
Yeah.
You're not my therapist, but you're a very good husband.
Thank you,
Hey, I would love to land on this question. Would anybody be willing to speak to maybe their hardest day in ministry and how God was present in it, or what you learnt from it? So maybe a difficult day in ministry for you.
I'm looking at you, Jay.
Okay. I'm was part of a church plant 12 years ago, and 2 years into that church plant, I was 19 when the church started, and so I was 21 at the time, and it came out that the leaders who started the church, and was only in its infancy stage, but there was a few hundred people that, and it was kind of growing and healthy, but we found out there'd been a moral failing. And they were really close friends of mine. And I just remember feeling like my world absolutely upended. I couldn't sleep. I was very anxious at the time. And I was like, I want to run. I would love to just bail. But I felt the Lord say, stay. And I remember one Sunday morning, probably a few weeks after it all come out. So we're in like this kind of interim season trying to work out what do we do with this little fledgling church that is now has suffered a blunt force trauma to the head. It was like, what the heck? And I just remember one Sunday morning I was meant to be leading worship, and I was just feeling so low. So I remember going back into like a little closet, like a very back room, and tucked myself into the corner, and I just put my headphones in, and I remember listening to this, it was like a United Pursue song, and I was singing like, I've made up my mind, I'm never going back, and just like singing that over myself as I had to like get out there, and like I'm 21, I have to lead worship with faith
massive.
and like try to like,
It's a lot.
have it together. But I just remember the presence of the Lord like coming and sustaining and carrying me through that, and I think it probably was an incredibly growing season, but it was definitely one of the harder days that I've had.
What got you out of that? Like, obviously the church keeps moving forward and team and things, but for you personally to even heal from that, what's that journey been like for you?
That's a good question. I think like for me, there was a lot of like staying the path, and probably my intimacy with the Lord, and then also a great relationship with my parents. Awesome. My parents are currently elders, like on our part of our church, and at the time they weren't in the church, but I think they were a great sounding board and a great place that I was able to have like when your spiritual leader has fallen, like having them there was a really great space as well.
That's awesome
to process. And but yeah, do you mean me personally or the church?
I think you answered it for yourself.
Beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, that's huge.
What about you, Alex?
I feel so like at the starting block of ministry. I mean, I've been a pastor for 10 years, but only been in the senior pastor space for just coming up on 2 years. So I feel really really young and really early into these things, but maybe not so much ministry, but just talking around being a healthy person. It was Are You Okay Day about 4 years ago. And, it goes out there, and as Aussies, we're like, hey, are you okay? Are you, it's like someone spills their coffee and you're like, are you okay? We just make fun of stuff. But I remember, Are You Okay Day 4 years ago, I genuinely asked myself, Alex, are you okay? And it was at that moment where I was like, I don't know what's wrong, but I know I'm not at 100%. And I remember talking with my wife, and I'm like, I just feel a certain way. I feel like I'm not firing at all cylinders like I used to. And I made the decision to start seeing a counselor. And I've been doing that consistently now for the last 4 years. Wow. And it's brought so much, I think, emotional maturity and just helped me process things I didn't even know I needed healing from. And just through conversations and talking, and she's a spirit-filled Christian counselor, awesome, always points me back to the word. It's been so beneficial. And I just feel so thankful that I acted on that thought of, no, I'm not fully okay. And to do something about it. Obviously, there's many other things. I've got great mentors in my life and we run to the Lord, of course.
Yes.
But there's multiple inputs to create a healthy person.
So good.
So
Love
that's
it.
what has been a moment for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Brilliant.
So good. Love that. For me, there's probably a lot of things. I would say it's not so much a day, but a season. But I think that's the tension, isn't it? Is that you're leading people and you're shepherding people, you're giving them wisdom, or you're trying to point them towards God, but you can just be going through some battles yourself. And so mine, I would probably point to like a 4-year season where I'd say like I felt like I went through a bit of a wilderness season. And I mentioned earlier that, we'd started in business and done that simultaneously as ministry, was self-funded for a while in ministry, 10 years or so. And but when we had joined Kingdom City, I felt like was following God. We'd sold the business, but actually we went into some really some financial hardships from there. And so it was about a 4-year period. And I'm seeing amazing things in ministry. This campus is growing. I mean, it doubled in a couple of years. It was just all these young adults are getting saved and things were going so well. Was loving being married, loving living in Perth, all these things. But my finances were just every single week or every single month were down. And it was just, it was very humbling and it's difficult, but I kind of describe it as like a bit of a crushing season or a wilderness season. Yeah. And that was difficult to have people coming forward for prayer saying, Pastor Ben, I'm praying for this job promotion. I didn't get it. I'm so discouraged. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my situation is so much worse than yours.
That's true.
And people are like, please pray for me. I got this $200 fine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love it if it was only $200 that I lost this week, let alone this, Wow. And so it was just, but you had to keep on loving people. And it was actually interesting though, in that we still saw the faithfulness of God. Like as it all kind of came all the way down to zero, the losses stopped and God found a way to turn it around. And we actually did see him turn the whole situation around.
Praise the Lord. That's
but
awesome.
that was such a, and he cut so many things out of me in that season. A lot of that wholeness stuff I was talking about, like so much of that happened in that season. I think as well, like, being married in ministry, sorry to take up two, but like
you may have to
take up two, but like you're married, and so you can. I mean, not. I think most relationships fight, but you can have a rip roar of a fight on the way to church.
It's always Sunday morning.
Yeah, it's the enemy.
We
That's
drive in
where he likes to
separately.
get you.
Separate cars, I was going to say. Separate cars.
Yeah, we drive separately. I take the children. It's a good time.
But no, it's that can be a tension, right? Because you've got you feel you're like, oh my, and you got to get up and preach, or you got a leaders meeting, or
You
something.
don't want to feel like you're faking it.
Yeah.
Like I think there's such a discourse in your heart when you feel like I'm putting on the smile. Like I want to love whoever's in front of me, and I want to love them well, and not an ounce of it should ever be fake. But it is a hard tension when you're in ministry and you're working through your own rubbish. You've got a tension going on to then rock up and minister to others when you need ministry. Sorry, I just hijacked.
No, that's great. Yeah, go for it.
Actually, if it's okay, I feel like my story that's come to mind really exemplifies that, because sometimes you're in ministry and you're going through something on a personal level and it's not like it doesn't matter, but you have to almost like bracket that. So you could be sick, you could be up all night with a child that's crying and unwell, and you still get up at 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning and go and worship lead or like go and preach or go and minister. I feel like a few weeks ago, Benny wasn't feeling that great and still preached 3 services. Like the tension of
crash that afternoon.
I think he did. It was a cracker of a service, but when you are a minister of the gospel and in the context of a local church, you can be going through something or experiencing something, but you still carry the heart of God. You still carry his people. You still carry the pressures of ministry. And one that does come to mind for me was several years ago. We were youth pastors at the time down on the Gold Coast, and my parents had actually just gone through a divorce. They had been together for 20 plus years. My dad had moved back to New Zealand. That's where he's from. So he was there, and to be 100% honest, he was in a really dark place. He was in a very vulnerable, broken place. He had just almost lost his entire family, as in the unit had disintegrated. He was in financial strife, and he rang me probably early afternoon, and I have a great relationship with my dad and talk to him all the time. And I remember him saying on the phone, "I'm not feeling good, I'm not doing good." And then he ended the call with, "I've got a gun and I'm going to use it." And he was like, "I don't want to be here anymore, bub." And that's what he said to me. And then he hung up the phone.
Whoa.
Yeah. So really, really like poignant moment. And I remember picking up the phone and I'm trying to call him, and I go find Benny. We were both home at the time. And I'm like, "Dad just told me like this is what's happening and this is what he's going through." And I'm trying to call him for hours. And I remember we had a youth meeting that night at our house, and I kept saying to Benny, I'm like quite distressed about it. And I'm like, "Can we cancel the meeting? What do we do?" And he's like, "It's all right, he'll be okay." And I'm like, "It's not all right. Like, I want my dad to be fine." And that tension of like, you face real challenges in your life of sickness, of grief, of loss, and you almost still, you don't power through, but there is a level of, there are still people to care for. You still get calls. And so we ended up still running that meeting. And I remember sitting in that meeting, my mind was elsewhere. Benny kind of ran it. And the whole time, like, I just didn't want to be there. I just wanted to make sure that my family was okay. And I really believe that's a big thing in ministry. It can be a pressure of ministry, and that's why we need the supernatural grace of God to carry us through. That's why we don't depend on ourselves. We don't depend on our own sufficiency. We are people too. And so in the same way that we point our congregation to the Lord, like we have to go to the Lord, but it's a wrestle. I feel like it is a wrestle, you know, when you have stuff in your own life and then you live such a public life. And honestly, pastoring is such an open life. Like, I don't know about you guys. There's always people at our house. It's very open.
Thank you for sharing that story, by the way. That is like, that's full on. I can't imagine what that would have been like for you guys. And it's the tension, isn't it? Like, I think about there's other jobs where you can pull a mental health day or call in sick or go on whatever leave. But as pastors, it's it's just different. But I come back to like, who's our model? Who are we looking to? Jesus.
Yes.
My goodness. My goodness. And again, we're all pastors here and people who are listening, I'm sure would have some Christian understanding of this, but he's suffering. He's on the cross and he's doing ministry. He's actually probably doing the most important ministry. And while he's on the cross, beaten, battered, bleeding, all of that, fully suffering, he then ministers to people by saying, "Father, forgive them for they don't know what they're doing." And I just go, wow. Again, I love and respect all the pastors and mentors in my life, but my model and the one I look to is Christ. And he's given us the example of suffering is part of the human journey and the Christian journey, but in it we can actually still minister to others, and that is that will forever baffle me. How? But that's what we look to, you know.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's like he is our all sufficiency in the highs and the lows of life and ministry. Guys, incredible conversations. Thank you so much for your wisdom. We'll definitely have some more conversations down the track. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Woo. Time for this backflip. Come on.
I got heels on my cons. Can't do it. Thank you for tuning in to The Healthy Christian. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and let's get healthy together.